Okay, hi everybody. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Gabriella and welcome to our second winter webinar for the season. This month it's all about textile waste, which is pretty fitting considering we are in one of the busiest shopping seasons of the entire year. My name is Gabriella. I'm the Business Outreach Coordinator here at the Chittenden Solid Waste District, and I'm joined today by Beth Parent, who's going to be our fabulous moderator. She's our Communications and Outreach Manager, and also Joe Whitten, who's the co-founder and CEO at Apparel Impact. Now, if you've been to any of our drop-off centers before, you've probably already familiar with them, even if you don't know you're familiar with them, but we'll get more into that soon. I'm excited as you all probably are, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay. Just want to do a double check. Beth, you can see my screen, correct? Perfect. Cool. So if at any point, just a couple of housekeeping rules. If you have any questions, if there's anything that you would like to ask, if you need anything clarified, go ahead and look for the button that says Q&A right at the bottom of your Zoom screen. You can use that to ask any questions. Beth is going to be monitoring it and we will be answering them live, either in the moment if it's super important that we clarify it, or at the end. And you can ask questions of me, of Joe, whatever you want regarding textiles. This meeting is being recorded and everybody will get the recording in an email at the end of the webinar or later this week. It will also be posted on our YouTube page, so you don't have to wait for the email if you don't want to. And then in addition to sending the recording out, we'll also be sharing some great resources and a feedback form. So if you have any comments or any suggestions for future webinars, you can feel free to pop that in there. Okay. Just a little bit about what we're going to be covering tonight. We're going to start off with some basics, just talking about the importance of diverting materials. Then we'll move on to mattress recycling because mattress recycling does involve some textiles. We'll talk about clothing and linens with Joe and Apparel Impacts, and then we'll talk about next steps and how you can reduce waste this holiday season. And then finally, Q&A for all of your fabulous questions. We'll answer whatever you got. Now, if you joined our last webinar, this slide is going to look pretty familiar. If not, I'm a little bit biased, but you should go check out our webinar from last month, all on recycling and why it's so important to divert items from the landfill. But right now, Vermont only has one active landfill. It's located in Coventry, Vermont, and it's expected to be completely full in about 20 years. And there's not a lot of space for it to expand, and not a lot of places it can go once that landfill is completely full. And that's why managing trash responsibly is such a big deal in Vermont. And across a lot of the Northeast, a lot of places are dealing with the same things that we are. What's interesting is that a lot of the stuff that we throw away isn't actually waste. It's materials that can be recovered and put to some good use. And there is actually a way that we know that. So in 2023, the state conducted a waste composition study. They do that about once every 5 years where trash from facilities all across the entire state is sorted to see what Vermonters are actually throwing away. CSWD does its own version of this, a diversion report, and we'll be sharing both of those out in the resources after the webinar. But one thing that stands out when you take a look at this from 2023 is that there are still recyclables, yard waste, food waste that's ending up in the trash. I know that may seem a little disappointing, but it's not as bad as it seems because we've actually taken a lot of steps in the right direction since the previous study in 2018. In fact, the total trash that Vermont is generating has actually decreased by 5% in those 5 years, which is amazing because the population actually grew 3.5% in that time. On top of that, food waste saw a huge decline, 13% by tonnage, and then recycling also declined, and Vermont has a 72.1% state recovery rate. So we are making really meaningful progress, but there is still a lot of work to do. One thing that's pretty interesting and kind of goes against what we've seen for trash, recycling, and food waste is that textiles grew as a portion of Vermont's waste, rising from 4.2% in 2018 all the way up to 6.5% in 2023. That's over 24,000 tons of textiles from just our small little state. Textiles now make up more waste than electronics, furniture, and bulky items all combined, according to this study, and that's pretty significant. And even mattresses, while it's not shown in its own separate category, has been rising. Mattresses are usually lumped in with furniture and bulky items, and we have seen that increase since 2018. So, why mattresses? Mattresses is the part that I'm going to be talking about. Whoop, I lost control of my slide for a moment. I got too excited. Uh, Mattresses do not have a state landfill ban here in Vermont, like recycling or electronics or food waste. However, there are some states outside of the US that are already starting to think about these things. Massachusetts has a ban on mattresses being put in the landfill. And then other states like California, Rhode Island, Oregon, Connecticut, they do have product stewardship programs for them. So it is something that's already in existence in a lot of other parts of the country. Even if Vermont doesn't require it, it is still important to be keeping those mattresses out of the landfill. This is a big number, so brace yourself, but Americans send more than 50,000 mattresses to landfills every single day. And that comes from the Recycling Council. And less than 5% of those mattresses that are being ready for disposal are actually recycled. Mattresses take up so much space in the landfill, even if they are just a small little piece of that pie that we're throwing away. Almost an entire yard of what we call airspace in a landfill. And on top of that, they're made from a ton of good materials that we can use and recover. 75 to 80% of a mattress can be recovered and recycled in some way. Some companies will even say it's as high as 90%. But there's a lot of good stuff there. And on top of that, when you're recovering those materials, you're saving water, you're saving energy, and you're saving resources and keeping those raw materials in use so that they can be turned into some new fabulous things that we're going to be talking about. And then, as a little aside, mattresses aren't the primary source of methane in landfills, but they do produce some. And if we can keep those stuff out of the landfills and out of that airless environment that a landfill is, we can actually do a little bit of good for the environment that way as well. So let's talk a little bit about where they can go. We accept mattresses at our Williston and Milton drop-off centers. These are DIY facilities where you can show up with your mattress, no appointment needed, and as long as you're able to load it yourself, you can get rid of your mattress pretty easily. We take everything from a crib to a California king, so whatever mattress you got, we'll take it. As long as it's not infested with any bed bugs, it doesn't need to be in usable condition. We even take mattress toppers, which is pretty nice, and futon mattresses. So if you've got one, we'll take it. If for some reason you are not physically able to transport that mattress yourself or carry it yourself or load it even with assistance yourself, Sleepwell Recycling does have a pickup option, so you can always have that picked up. Now let's talk a little bit about Sleepwell Recycling. I'm going to show a video. It's about 1 minute long and there is some sound, but it's just elevator music. So if you can't hear it, it's no problem. But this is going to show you how a mattress actually gets broken down right here in Burlington. So Something you might have noticed, that entire process was done completely by hand. It doesn't have to be. There are some really fancy machines out there that will take apart that whole mattress in a couple of seconds, but we do have a facility, not us, Sleepwell Recycling does have a facility where they will literally take your mattresses and strip it of everything that's usable, breaking it down to its most basic raw materials. And that is where CSWD's drop-off centers send their mattresses once you bring them to us. The main parts of the mattress are going to be foam and fabric, as well as metal and some wood. Um, Dismantled components are typically recycled pretty easily. The foam and fabric is baled and it's sold as a recycled fiber material, which can be made into a lot of things like carpet padding, for example. Whereas the metal can be turned into pretty much anything that steel can be made into. The metal is typically found in a lot of the small coils and springs that mattresses have. And then lastly, the wood actually goes to the McNeil station where it gets turned into electricity. In some cases, wood can also be chipped up and used for bedding or mulch, but that is what happened to the wood at the Sleepwell Recycling Center in Burlington. Now we're going to move on to textiles. This is definitely the most exciting part. Textiles are another item that are not technically landfill banned, but are really good to keep out of the landfill. At all of our drop-off centers, all 6 of them, we have bins labeled with Apparel Impact. And we will take any of your textiles, whether they're in usable or unusable condition, as long as they're bagged, reasonably clean, and we send them to Apparel Impact in Hooksett, New Jersey, where they can get reused or recycled, depending on what the material is and what it's made up of. So now I'm going to pass it over to Joe. Joe Whitten is the co-founder and CEO of Apparel Impact, which is a veteran-owned textile reuse and recycling company, serving 6 states with over 1,850 drop-off locations. Apparel Impacts has diverted over 10 million pounds of clothing in 2025 and provided free clothing to more than 4,000 people and families. They're recognized as an SBA Veteran Business of the Year and New Hampshire Business Magazine's Business of the Year. And Joe leads the company mission to deliver practical, community-driven solutions where some other recycling might fall short. All right, Joe, I will let you share your screen and I will remove mine.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate it. I made it in the nick of time with technical difficulties, but we got it done and it all turned out to be okay. Thank you so much, Gabrielle. I appreciate the introduction and thank you everybody for joining tonight. We're pretty excited about this as well. We love Vermont. We love the expansion that we've had there and the partnership with CSWD has been awesome. So I'm going to share the screen and hopefully this goes well. I'm going to do desktop and then I'm sure you see a bunch of crazy stuff and then we're going to go here. Gabrielle, if you don't mind, just let me know that we're good to go.
I see your slides just fine.
Wonderful. Okay, so tonight we're just going to talk about textiles. That's what I spend about 80 hours a week on. I love talking about this, and I told Gabriella to cut me off if I get a little winded because I can keep going and going on this. But definitely excited, and there's a lot to learn about where our clothing goes, and in essence, the fact that we can really all do better, and that's what we're trying to do. So, thank you again for having me, and we'll go right into it. Apparel Impact started it about 10 years ago, and we started small, built our first drop-off bin out of wood and vinyl siding, and we placed it in Manchester, New Hampshire, which is where I was born and raised. So that was an exciting first step. And, over time, it grows and grows, and the company continues to focus on how to divert as much textile waste, how to educate folks, and also how to solve clothing insecurity. And you fast forward to today, and we have about 1,850 locations in 6 states. We partner with anyone from small business municipalities, Fortune 500 companies across the country. We have some great nonprofit partnerships as well. And this year, as of last week, we reached a milestone of 20 million pounds in 2025. So pretty awesome to think about where we started with one wooden bin to now servicing 6 states, over 300 municipalities. And we have provided clothing to over 20,000 people and families as of this year. So that's a little bit about us. We do have some awards, which we love showing because I think it's always cool to show the team kind of the progress that we've made and the accomplishments and also the impact that we've had. So, um, why textile waste matters, big picture. As Gabriella mentioned when she was referencing kind of where it's going to on the percentage, 1991 it started as 1% of total waste, textile waste, and you fast forward to today, we're approaching in some places 9%. It averages anywhere from 6 to 8%. It's an incredible number. It's outpacing pretty much all waste, and it's a huge issue. Uh, the reason why it's an issue is because it doesn't really break down that easily or cleanly. We have wastewater issues, energy, um, you know, methane. There's so many reasons why textile waste is a big issue, not to mention the costs associated with landfilling and the landfill space itself. So, textile waste was not really a subject that most people focused on. And really, over the last 3 to 4 years, it's become really a hot topic. It's become something that a lot of people are trying to figure out how to solve. And Apparel Impact, that's kind of what our whole life is about. That's what we're trying to do. So, um, a little bit about what what people think happens and what actually happens. I think education is really an important part. Um, Most people think that clothing, when they actually donate or recycle it, goes right to people directly or local resale. And they think that if it can't be used, anything else is just recycled into rags. The truth of the matter is 80% of all clothing is actually reusable for its intended use. And so, if you really think about that, and then you think about the idea that 85% of all clothing in the country actually ends up in the trash, it's pretty sad. If we could really find a way to capture it before it ends up in the trash, tell people that it actually is usable and 80% of it can be reused, it has a huge impact. Not even only on the recyclable end, but we're talking about 500,000 jobs that could be created if everyone in the country actually reused and recycled their clothing. We're talking about solving clothing insecurity to scale per town. So there's a lot of reasons why we actually need to think differently about it. But what actually happens is textiles actually move through multiple reuse channels, multiple recycling channels. And some items are, used locally, reused locally. If you're working with the right recycler, if you're working with the right reuse company. Globally, 70% of all used clothing in the country is actually shipped overseas. Only 30% stays within the United States. When I was researching, excuse me, when I was researching the industry before I started Apparel Impact, that stat kind of hit me hard. Because I know, firsthand clothing insecurity. I also know firsthand that there are a lot of opportunities within the United States to actually reuse it here, whether it's upcycling, downcycling, or reuse in itself. Um, so, from the beginning, Apparel Impact, I made sure that we focused on how to keep as much within the US. And so we flipped that stat on its head, where 70% actually stays within the US and only 30% we work with in exports. And even when we work with in exporting, we work with the US embassies in the countries that we work with in order to make sure that actually who our customer is someone that's trusted and verified. Most of the industry doesn't do that. But that's kind of how we're disrupting the industry in a way. Some is downcycled, and some have no viable end market. What does that mean? 5% is contaminated. So it could be mold, it could be wet. It could be oil stained. So there's a lot of reasons why it might not have a viable market, but the truth is 95% or more does. And so that's kind of what we're focused on solving. Um, Sorry, I got the screen of us. I'm looking at faces while I'm doing it, so I just had to move it. So how does the system work? Reuse first is really the main focus. That's what we need to focus on first because 80% can be reused. So why wouldn't we use it for its intended purpose? And then we focus on recycling when it's needed. Reuse really does have the lowest environmental impact. It's always the priority. And textiles reuse through local charities, community engagement, emergency programs, domestic resale, could be a thrift shop, a vintage shop, could be a church thrift shop. And global resale markets, like I said, 70% ends up overseas. And so that's a huge market for used textiles and used clothing, primarily because 93% of the world can only afford used clothing. I know that firsthand. I'm lucky in a big way where my dad has been a missionary for 40 years. And so as a kid, I got to travel the world with him and I got to see what used clothing markets were. I got to see that actually, a big part of most countries in the developing world have hundreds of thousands of jobs that depend on used clothing. So, it is an important aspect, and that's one of the biggest markets for it. Not something really Apparel Impact focuses on. We're actually trying to focus on the opposite, but at least most people can be assured that there is a real need globally. It is a global market. It has been for close to 80 to 100 years within the United States. Um, what else happens when it's recycled? Downcycled, it could be insulation. California uses denim for their insulation within the walls. In New England, we use that pink, itchy stuff. And there's a lot of different uses. Toyota, as a car manufacturer, uses downcycled textiles in the underlayment of their trunks. And as far as upcycled, what does that mean? Upcycled essentially is taking clothing and textiles and turning it into something new, a new product. So if you have kids that wear a Converse shoe and they happen to wear the denim Converse shoe, some of that denim came from Apparel Impact. Excuse me. Um, so upcycling is something that Apparel Impact is focused on in a big way. Sorry, guys, I got to get my energy drink in. Upcycled is Upcycling is something that Apparel Impact is strongly focused on. That's kind of our next phase as a company. We just launched an upcycled bag that comes from ski jackets and ski wear that can't be used, and that's called the Alpine Collection, where we have ski mountains that are already starting to recycle their employee jackets that used to end up in the trash, now turning it into bags where people can actually use. And so upcycling is something that I think we'll see a lot more of, and Apparel Impact's going to be a pretty big part of that as well. What makes textiles hard? A lot. Um, Blended fabrics. So cotton is great when it comes to needing to be recycled. Polyester, not so much. Spandex, even harder. Fast fashion, cheaply made, bad fabric content, low durability. Um, the other aspect is the contamination, which we mentioned. Uh, the problem is Europe developed the ability to uh, do fiber to fiber recycling, which essentially is the shirt on your back. If it can't be reworn or reused, they had the ability to put it through a chemical process and churn out the original fabric, whether it was cotton or polyester or a mixture. They could use that for new products. The problem is that it costs 20% more than virgin materials. And so no clothing manufacturer is going to pay 20% more, even though it's better for all of us, of course, because profit comes before what's good. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in. There are two companies in the United States that are starting something better with a better technology. And so I'm hopeful that the current state of technology and scale improves. And I do see that happening. It's just probably 2 to 3 years out from the ability to do that. but it does look promising. I have spoken to both companies and it looks good. What can residents do better? That's my niece Stella, by the way. I love that picture. I use it everywhere. What can residents do better? Honestly, just taking it seriously. If 85% of our clothing is ending up in the landfill, kind of just the first decision to not throw our clothes in the trash is kind of a good start. So taking it seriously, reuse, recycle, donate the items, clean and dry. Make sure that they're not contaminated, but bag it up, take it seriously, and bring it somewhere. Accessibility is really the hardest part of our industry. How do you do that to scale? How do you make it extremely convenient? More convenient than a trash can in the home? Pretty tough to do. So that's what Apparel Impact really is focused on is how do you bring it to scale? Well, if you're driving to work, if you're bringing the kids to school, if you're going to the office, if you're going on vacation and you're driving past a location, no matter where it is, it needs to be it needs to be accessible. It needs to be publicly accessible, easy to access, and in the view often. So you see that same drop-off location every day. And so education, understanding the why and the how, that's a pretty important aspect. But we're getting there. There's a lot of cool things that are happening, and I see a lot of progress. Gabriella, how am I on time? You can be honest. Oh, I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're doing good on time.
Oh, you sure? Okay. You
Yep,
let me
you're
know.
all right.
Cut me off. Um, what is the municipal role in textile diversion? Um, we have found success in having a large impact by working directly with municipalities. And the reason why is because access, like I said, and convenience, the ability to, no matter where you are in town, be close by to do something with your clothing other than throw it out. And as we work with municipalities, we basically build a network, and we do this just as their recycler. And if they choose to join our municipal impact program, we actually take it above and beyond because not only do we have a full network within the town, making it easy, but we actually provide clothing directly to people suffering from clothing insecurity in that town. It's the first in the country. We developed it this year, and it works really well. Where there's liaisons in town, we are the recycler for the town, and at the same time, they have liaisons that can request clothing for people in town that need it. We fulfill it directly on site here, and we ship it directly to them. So that's solving both. At Apparel Impact, we fight two problems. We fight clothing waste and we fight clothing insecurity. 85% of all clothing ends up in the trash. 12% of everybody in town suffers from the inability to afford decent clothing for either themselves or for their kids. That's important to us. That's what we're trying to solve. And so working with municipalities really has the biggest impact. Accessibility, clear messaging, educating folks on why textile waste is important to think about and how to go about doing something about it. Um, you know, Clothing's heavy. It's really expensive to landfill. And so, a small town America can save anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 a year just by working with a textile recycler. Hopefully you choose Apparel Impact, but of course, no pressure. And so there are ways to solve it in a big way. An example is in New Hampshire, we work with one town. Within 12 months, we diverted 60% of all textile waste just by working with us. We really know how to do this, and it's about accessibility, education, and there's a way to have a really big impact and see a huge difference. It's not just about numbers. You can actually divert a lot of waste from each town if they take it seriously and by working with the municipality. And by the way, bottom left, that's why districts like CSWD matter. Measuring impact. This is kind of an ugly slide, so my apologies in advance. I don't know why it looks like this, but this year we diverted we got 15 days left, 20 million pounds. Pretty awesome. Just within CSWD, and the locations that we work with. In this year, we diverted 90 tons of textiles. Off the top of my head, I don't know how many locations it is. My guess would be five or six, Gabriella. I think that's, yep, six locations. So that's kind of an example of what I'm talking about. When you're starting to work with districts and municipalities, six locations diverted 90 tons of textiles. I mean, that's six locations. So when you extrapolate that off of 1,850 locations, right? It has an impact. It's not just, go out and get them. Let's divert textiles and not really knowing what impact we actually have. No, there's really an impact. Six locations, 90 tons is impressive. That slide on the right, that figure 4.1 million, is actually the total pounds that were diverted from the state of Vermont right this year in 2025. We're out of the six states, Vermont is currently at third place. We're investing a lot of money, a lot of resources, a lot of time into our expansion. We did a study with the state of Vermont this year, and we measured the average Vermonter and how far they live from a close drop off, the closest drop off. The average Vermonter lives 1.3 miles from an Apparel Impact drop off. That goes from the southern tip as far as you can go to when you're visiting Canada. So we really are trying to expand. And as you can see, in I think 3 years, we've tripled the amount of textiles being recycled and diverted and reused from the state of Vermont. And now the average Vermonter lives less than a mile and a half from the ability to drop off. It's incredible. Um, what does the future look like? It looks bright in our eyes. We're pretty excited. Every year we grow about 25% as a company in total weight that we're diverting. We expand the amount of people that we actually provide clothing to. This year we'll probably reach above 4,000 people and families. That number grows, especially with the municipal impact program. Um, what do I envision the future looking like? I think that we actually solve clothing insecurity to scale in a lot of different towns. I think that there are a lot of promising steps being made in clothing manufacturing where they're actually looking at better material design. Um, like I mentioned before, recycling technology, I think we're going to see over the next year or two really develop to scale to where we can take clothing, turn it into the original material, and now that's being made into new items. Domestic reuse is our focus. I think that's a huge opportunity. Smarter collection systems. What does that look like? We're developing drop-off centers that are self-service, that can hold a large amount of textiles that can be serviced in under 20 minutes. We're working with municipalities on that as well. So that and those drop-off centers are actually educational. They have flat screen TVs that are moving with video. They're moving with slides. Folks can go and visit and ask questions and interact with people. So there's a lot of cool partnerships. There's a lot of cool things that are happening. But I honestly think it looks bright, and there's a lot to do. But so far, over the last 9 years as a company, it's only gotten better year over year. And so it looks promising. I tried to keep it as short as possible because to be honest, I'm not a huge fan of PowerPoint presentations. I'm kind of a guy that wants to talk with you. Let's figure out the problems. So I love questions and interactions. So I hope that was okay. If it was useful, awesome. If not, please ask me, and I'd love to answer your questions. And
Joe,
thanks
we've
again.
got a lot of questions for you. You ready for me to fire some at you?
100%.
All
Yeah.
right. Larry would like to know, we wear most of our clothes until they're no longer wearable. Our household clothing output is about 70% clean, unwearable rags and 30% still wearable. Is this too high of a ratio of unwearable for apparel impact?
No.
Great.
We we
Another
we
one.
folk we sorry, I know you said a
Yep.
lot. The answer is no, and the reason being is because we're a true recycler. We focus on reuse first, but we have the ability to recycle what's not reusable.
Awesome.
Great question.
Also, somebody said they sew clothes and have fabric scraps. Can those fabric scraps be placed in the bins?
We do see them often. And so without making a blanket wide statement of give us your fabric scraps, we can take them. They're extremely expensive to recycle. That's the part of the technology over the next 2 years that I'm excited about because that's what's going to bring it across the finish line to say, give us all your fabric scraps because we 100% have a solution that's inexpensive. But yes, if we find them in the drop-offs, we can take them, but maybe just don't tell friends and family.
Okay. Can you mend some things on the way to resale?
That's upcycling. Yeah, that's what we're focused on. Right now we have bags being made from ski jackets that are considered non-usable. So that's essentially what we're working on right now. We've already developed it. That's the first set. But there's a lot to announce over the next year for what we're doing in the upcycled world.
Awesome. Are there any other textiles accepted beyond clothing? I'm guessing like uh,
So
towels
that's,
and
yep,
yeah.
it's a great question, and I probably should have put acceptable items. So yes, so essentially anything that someone can wear. It can be clothing, it can be shoes, footwear, it can be accessories like belts, backpacks, hats. It can be linen like sheets and blankets and towels. So that really a whole host of items.
Amelia would like to know if they should still drop off blended fabrics in the recycling, even though they're harder to recycle.
So, unfortunately, in the world we live in, with where manufacturing is, with what clothing material is, and where fast fashion is, we can't escape it. The majority of materials being made today are mixed fabric.
I don't know if you'll take this one or Gabby, but how much textiles does Chittenden County recycle in or versus send to the landfill? Do we have that number, or is that something that we can get?
I have the number for Apparel Impact. We're pretty data centered, and I'm a little obsessed with numbers. So we definitely have that, and I can get it to whoever asks for sure.
Okay.
In the interim, I just want to share because I know it's covering a lot of things. We don't have just textile numbers. We're currently at a 59.75% diversion rate for everything. So that includes your food waste, your recycling, all of your special materials. Our most recent report has all special materials. So textiles is in there along with anything else that's banned from landfill at 13,893 per 3 tons generated and 6,000 tons diverted. So that leaves about 7,600 that is still going in the landfill, but it could be diverted.
Room for opportunity. Opportunity
We're
for
working
everyone,
on it.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
A list of drop-off spots around Vermont. Can we put that into the email that we send out, so folks can see that?
We can, yeah. Yep,
Awesome.
we can certainly do. We don't, so essentially, people can always go to apparelimpact.com and they can click nearest bin. And you would think there's a map with all the locations. It's actually just submit the town, and we're actually going to personally get back to you with the closest locations. You'll hear from us like a live person, a little old fashioned. I am working on the ability to have a map to have selected locations. We're very careful because our industry is very difficult. There's a lot of kind of underground competitors and fly by night, and it's we always are careful to like submit where our locations are because we're careful about who is looking at them essentially. But we're always here and we'll always make sure you have the closest locations.
That's great. Does the clothing Vermonters drop off get redistributed to Vermont families, or are they throughout New England?
Yeah, throughout New England mostly. Pretty hard to keep the exact item being provided to in the same state. But yes, some definitely does for sure. Actually, we had today OSCU. Does that ring a bell? Or what county is it? School district? Sorry. When we had 4 customers, it was so easy. 1,850 is a lot. I try, guys, I promise. Anyways, today alone in Vermont, we have a school district that requested 14 different outreach requests, and they're being fulfilled as we speak. So
What about a list of any of the Chittenden County organizations that you work with to address clothing insecurity?
I don't know the answer to, I don't know what that question means, but if they're asking like who we work with to provide clothing to,
I think so. Yes.
okay.
Yep.
It would be our customers. So any municipalities or school districts we work with that chose the option for the municipal impact program. The reason why the municipal impact program has that catch is because in order to basically fulfill full wardrobes and package them and staff that, pretty expensive, totally willing to sacrifice and invest in that. But in order to do that, we need to collect and recycle and divert as much. I mean, it's kind of a win-win because we're solving two problems. But if folks have questions about who that is, yeah, I mean, you can reach out to us and I can tell you some school districts nearby if they're signed up for it for sure.
Awesome. A couple of folks are wondering, how do you make it all work business wise? Like how do you pay your team? How do you keep afloat in challenging times?
Yeah, good question. No, just kidding. So textiles are basically treated like a commodity. They have been since the Middle Ages. You can track back the history of textiles, 1550 the year around. So essentially, textiles are a commodity that is purchased. And so that's how we generate our revenue. We're a recycler that collects and diverts as much of the textile waste as possible, and that has value. Um, the problem is why we focus on domestic is because the value is volatile. So we've been in business for 9 years, and all 9 years have been always trying to figure out how to make it work. We've never had a year where it's like, we're really doing it. We're about to build a tower. It's never been like that. But I'm also a little stubborn, and so it's always about we're going to make it work. So the quick answer is textiles is treated like a commodity. And so instead of ending up in the trash, let's actually treat it as something that can create jobs, solve clothing insecurity, um, have a legitimate business that operates and solves the problems, and is able to generate the revenue in order to do that. So that's kind of the quick answer, but I could talk an hour on that for sure. And by the way, whoever asked that, feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat.
Um, Electric blankets.
We do receive them, and to be honest with you, we do recycle those. We have not received feedback that they are not recyclable. If we did, it would be updated on the acceptable items list, but we do take them. Yeah.
What about musty smelling clothes? Would those be contaminated?
So most of the time, yes. Yeah, most of the time,
And do you
yes.
need volunteers in Vermont to fulfill demands? If so, how do we sign up?
Love it. I love that question. Um, the quick answer is yes. In what capacity, we don't really know because right now the focus is municipal impact. And so that's actually direct contact with the town and liaisons. As far as like a public outreach, we are talking about the idea of doing a clothing drive and at the same time having folks that have the ability or have the need to come and get clothing to do that. We do that in a lot of places. So we do actually on our website, we do have the ability to sign up and show interest in actually getting involved somehow. So
And last one, what about upholstery fabrics?
it would be considered the same as fabric scrap. So it's tough, it's expensive. We do come across it. And hopefully in a few years, we have the ability to actually really do it to scale, but it's not quite there yet.
Great. Thank you.
100%. Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciated that. That was so many questions. So I appreciate you taking the rapid fire approach there.
Love it.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close us out and then I'll go over what we've got coming down the pike. But if you have one or two last minute questions, throw those in the chat. And if we got time, we'll get to those as well. But all right here. I am going to share my screen one more time uh, and give you some takeaways to consider. Although, quite frankly, I think Joe already did a great job covering a lot of it. I think at the end of the day, we just want to remember stuff doesn't need to be banned from the landfill in order to be saved from it. So the greenest option is always going to be to prevent waste in the first place. There are so many different ways that you can do that. Mending was mentioned, secondhand was mentioned, thrifting things, making things, swapping for what you want. Even some mattresses may be donatable if they're clean and untorn and under 5 years old, but you always check before trying to donate mattresses at your local shelters or anywhere that might take them. But if reuse isn't an option, there are so many different ways to recover the resources that are in textile products like mattresses, linens, and clothing. Of course, the most sustainable stuff is the stuff you already have. Nothing is going to beat the stuff that you've already got. And I really hope that today you feel inspired to take care of what you own, although it sounds like a lot of you on the call are already doing that. And take care of what you receive this holiday season so that we can just scrap textile waste for good. And then here are two great examples of how you can actually take care of what you have in accordance with the hierarchy of needs or a waste hierarchy. And our next webinar will be a future built on batteries. We're going to be joined by Recycle Rhonda, our CSWD school outreach coordinator, and Deputy Fire Chief Josh Esty from the Shelburne Fire Department, who are going to talk to you about battery recycling and battery safety. We have lots of guest speakers lined up for you today who are excited to share what they know. So please don't forget to register for the rest of our webinars this year. And I just want to throw out there, thank you so much, Joe, for being on this call, for sharing what you know, because this has been super enlightening.
Excellent.
I will be sending out a resource list in addition to the recording. I will include Apparel Impact's accepted items list. I will include a link to Apparel Impact's website so that you can look up bins near you if necessary. And on top of that, the recording will also be posted on our YouTube page this week. If you're a business, a resident, a landlord, or an educator, and you would like resources or support, please reach out to anybody on CSWD's team. And again, thank you so much. We are really looking forward to seeing you in the next few weeks for our future webinars. And are there any more questions, Beth, before we sign off and say happy holidays?
We are good. Thank you again, Joe.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and I will see you all next month.
Thank you again. See you soon.
Thank you.